Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All
No video.
right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world.
Some good coin.
Wow. Hey, Doug. Oh, you're on mute.
I wasn't on mute before I edited the video. I don't know why it keeps throwing me back there. Sorry.
It is okay. It is okay.
It makes me feel better because every time I sign on, it's something. I forget to put the mic on, forget the camera, forget to plug in the headphones. I've always got something going on.
Well, Zoom's one set of steps, right? Then you got Teams, that's another one. Then you have, Google Hangouts or whatever. I mean, everybody's got something different. And
yeah.
It's always something. Oh my God.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. And thank you for sending product. I'm actually drinking the I don't know.
Fantastic.
I've got the blood orange one in here. So.
What do you think?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I did the lemon one this morning.
Okay.
And
yeah, it's good. Just water. Just like I thought, what the hell? You sent it to me. I may as well try. I didn't think you could get here. First off, I was yesterday saying, "Oh, I'll send it to you tomorrow." I'm thinking, buddy, you're delusional. There's no way it's going to get to Canada. Vancouver for sure. Toronto's got odds. I'm never going to come to Vancouver in a day.
I was scared of that as well. I was like, "There's no way we're going to be able to get there." I looked at our shipping software. I'm like, "Oh, it says by noon tomorrow." And I could have saved $2 and had it there by midnight. So today
I was like, "Well, this doesn't make sense." I was surprised.
Oh wow!
I was shocked. Shocked.
Well, there is an advantage of sending out, single packets, on a small, you had 20 servings. That's essentially like a case of cans, right?
Yeah.
That weigh all of 4 ounces, 5 ounces. So
yeah, it's cool. So for the listeners, we've got Doug DuMars on. So we're kind of excited. So, first time we're meeting you. So, it's going to be fun. We're kind of an unprepared podcast, right? So we're very cash. We're curious about your story, and then the brand looks amazing. So we want to hear about that too. Do you want to tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So really appreciate you guys having us on or having me on. This is fantastic. We're a Rebellious beverage company. We fly under Drink Rebellious, and across our social handles, our website, etc. And we decided a few years ago that there was an opportunity to really do a little more disruption in the beverage space, as if there's not enough out there. Just probably the most competitive category period, in the face of the planet. And yet I have about 9 years experience with Pepsi in a lot of different roles, and another 8.5 at Kraft Foods, and a lot of different roles there across the world. And never once in a million years did I think that I'd go out and start a beverage company to compete with the Pepsis of the world that I know intimately and whatnot. Well, that isn't the target. We're not really trying to compete on that soft drink scale and whatnot, but we are trying to compete for that healthier option, right? That functional space that the consumer has been craving for years. And in a ready to drink, in a bottle standpoint, it's really being missed. A lot of these companies are positioning themselves via marketing, et cetera, that they really are a healthier option. But if you look into a lot of the ingredient lines, you start to see a lot of stuff that's not necessarily natural or clean that goes in there. And some of them might be the vitamins of the world that they add back in, but you still have a lot of things that that doesn't necessarily drive the healthy portion of what they do. And many also process out what is the ingredient that really provides the health. They process that out to get to the low cost, et cetera, to go through. So with our products, Rebellious Infusions, we have 10 flavors. They're about the size of a business card. You add it to water, whatever your water vehicle of choice is, whether it's a half-liter bottle or a Contigo or Swell bottle, et cetera. Take it with you on the go. It's designed for ice water. It can be used in a bunch of secondary applications, like I put it in oatmeal in the mornings or et cetera.
That's interesting.
Never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, my kids every so often will make waffles on the weekend or whatever, and I'll put her in the batter. Now they're getting think 300 milligrams of antioxidants. So the whole purpose of our product is really to boost the immune system with the health benefits. And we do that with green tea. So our product is based on green tea, and we have a very proprietary, product that comes from our supplier that they don't sell anywhere else, that really measures our green tea antioxidant levels. And we actually put that on the package. We have in almost all of them, in 5 of them, we have over 300 milligrams of antioxidants, and 3 of them are pure energy. We have about 100, and our caffeine freeze vary a little bit because those are not green tea. They're hibiscus and rooibos. So there's a little bit different element, but at the end of the day, it's really about delivering a functional benefit for the consumer to have. And it's something that tastes good, and they can very portable, take it with them and have it whenever they're thirsty or need to hydrate. And it's all about hydration these days as well. So it's an opportunity. There's a lot of powders out there, but nothing in the liquid space, which is what we bring. So
that's kind of neat.
It allows us to have, a significant shelf life without adding anything as well.
This is cool. I want to come back to this. Do you mind if we I want to roll back a little. We have an audience that tends to want to know about Doug as well before we get the drink stuff. I think is really cool. I do want to get into it. I was surprised at the sachets and that they were liquid, but you kind of you blew over, but I think it's kind of
blew over my own background.
Yeah, I mean, because you've got some research in your background. You've got a role, a bunch of roles at Pepsi and then Kraft as well. So you understand the corporate space and how big is, right? Like, so
there's no question.
On the desk, I've come from like Danone and places like that, and J&J. So big is big, but like Kraft Heinz, for example, is like,
well, PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz. I looked at the same thing because we don't typically prepare. But,
but you did a little bit.
We did. I went on and I thought, okay, because for example, like most of our listener base is probably small to medium startups. Completely the reverse of your world. They're the ones looking at the big guys and say, oh my God, I should be able to take a piece out of them, and all the gung ho, and they're quasi delusional, and because they don't get it. And then I'm looking at you today, I'm thinking, oh yeah, this one I don't fucking understand at all. I don't know what.
You're like, wait a minute,
he already came other way, and I'm thinking, so how bad they are to compete with, and you chose.
You chose.
Okay, so this story's coming out because I'm dying to hear what this one is. Because if anything, it might be inspirational to a few of these small guys who thought, okay, that's interesting.
Well, there is a little bit of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of insanity to it. I mean, I do understand how deep pockets with these, top 50 companies in the food and bev space, operate around the globe and whatnot. The one thing that's important to know is, you really just have to find a more of a niche in a unique area that you can go into. And you see this all the time with startups that turn out to be successful, that are relatively young brands that are growing and get more money behind them, et cetera. But at the end of the day, that holds true with everything. So whether it's a widget or whether it's a food product or a beverage product, you got to find that little bit of niche that you can kind of you can carve into, and then you start to use that like a wedge, right? And splinter those larger companies. I mean, Buys what, 10, 11 years old now? But it started small. It started as one, and now it has just as much space in some stores as the soft drink companies do. So, then Dr. Pepper picked them up, right? So not to skip over that, but my background is very different from most entrepreneurs. I mean, I did work for Pepsi for 9+ years, mostly out of the state of Michigan, in a lot of different roles, from, kind of like a category manager without really being a category manager. I sold in space to sales at Kroger. I did a lot of work there. I spent time before that at IRI, so obviously I know the data inside and out, and how it's analyzed. My roles at Pepsi went through various roles of supporting, little mini CFOs for these market units that they had, et cetera, to doing bids for large consortiums of buying groups. At that time, it's been a little while, but it was when the school districts, the local school districts, your high school, et cetera, were all banding together to try to get like the Walmart pricing power out of it. So they're like, hey, we need like 10 of us to get together, or 30 of us to get together. So early days, so I did a lot of work on, the bid process with that. And so selling and being a part of it and supporting that aspect has been something I've always been a part of without actually never being in sales. It's like never did I have a role that was a sales role, but I supported sales all my career at every level, and I'll explain a little more at Kraft too. But you know, some things that we did, and you know, I was much more finance analytical, and it was all about solving problems, not the black and white accounting that takes place, you know. That some people think of finance and accounting as one. They are night and day different. And, you know, we're all about, hey, how do we price this right? How do we bundle this together? How do we drive more sales? How do we close this gap? What do we do to, you know, to drive more? And you got to look at profitability on both sides, not just your company, which is pays your check. But if the retailer is not driving this through, how's that going to work? Right. I mean, both of you have been on that side, and it doesn't work well there. So these are things that throughout my life and my career, I've really kind of been schooled through some of the best companies, at least earlier in my career for sure, as I've gone through. And then I just take that and apply it every step of the way. So my 9 years at Pepsi went from a lot of different things to, you know, overseeing, you know, one of the largest market units, you know, from a finance standpoint, and which was really a business partner, you know, for it. You know, it was more operational than it would be your traditional finance role. I was in the trade every week, multiple days, you know, I still to this day, it's in my DNA now. I can't go through a convenience store or a grocery store without, you know, spending. My wife and kids won't even go in with me. The only aisles I don't go in are the aisles that aren't food related, right? So like,
I get it.
I never sold Kimberly Clark or anything like that, so I'm not going down the kitchen aisle or the toilet paper aisle or any of that. But I still have to go up and down all these aisles, and then my Kraft days, you know, now we're in 50 categories, so you know the products are everywhere, and you know, so that expanded that even farther. But yeah, it's exciting, you know, being able to have that kind of part of my DNA and the analytical and the background side of how some of the biggest companies operate. And, you know, Pepsi's a sales company at the end of the day. Now, PepsiCo is more the marketer and the formulator, if you would. And I started with them 6 months in. The bottling group got split out of my tenure. And everybody in our business, except for like, I think 5 people, went to that side. Those 5 remaining were the national sales counts and a category manager or something like that. So it was a very small group, and that operated a lot more independent than historically. So we were, you know, we had a lot of autonomy to what we could do and get involved in, and basically it's all results at the end of the day. So as long as you're impacting the business and driving growth and educating people and building, in my case, building financial literacy was one of the things that was important for better decision making. Was there. It was outstanding. And then I left Pepsi after kind of, you know, I didn't want to go to New York. Just flat out simple. You know, that was really the options that were over there, and nothing against New York. I love it, but I had a son that I think was under a year, and my daughter wasn't even 2 or wasn't even 3 yet. And, you know, to go there and live in northern Connecticut and drive down to, you know, just outside of Manhattan wasn't exactly in being corporate world, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
Corporate world, now we're dealing with like 16-hour days. And,
exactly.
You know,
7 days a week.
Yeah, bedroom community out there. Like wife's not going to know anybody, and you know, for what 10% raise. Yeah, it's a tough call. You know, you got to take a decision between career advancement, which could have paid off very handsomely. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I always bet on myself, hence what I'm doing right now. But at the end of the day, it was just that was a decision to keep the family together rather than split the family up, I guess. Let's put it that way. And then, you know, shortly, you know, I left the industry completely, spent about a year in as a very hybrid role of director of finance to investor relations officer to strategist to treasurer in a family-run public company. Don't even ask. And it was just chaos, but I got involved in everything. And it was one of those where I need to do something a little bit different. And I need to, if I'm ever going to do it, it's kind of now, because all these type of roles are very silo driven at large companies like a Pepsi, where I have to go spend 2 years in treasury. I have to go spend 2 years in investor, go do something like that. And a year into that, I got a call to come to Chicago. Now, if Pepsi would have been in Chicago then, it would have been easy for me, but it And I got a call to Chicago to come to Kraft Foods for international finance, where I was involved. I headed up financial planning and analysis for everywhere but US and Canada. So now I go from being in the trade every day, seeing our products, the competition, tasting new innovation, all that kind of stuff, right? A tremendous amount of data available from, every data supplier in the world that not that Pepsi buys or Kraft buys, but just is literally available, right? That's out there. To now, I can't find our products that we sell in Australia. I can't find our products that we sell. And across Europe, we have 15 different things. I mean, I know milk is big, et cetera. So it's a very different animal. And yeah, fortunately I'm in Chicago, so we do have these, ethnic grocery stores that you can see. Right. And obviously our headquarters has stuff coming in all the time, but it's just not the same, right? And when you see this all the time and what's out there, but it's very different. That was probably my most challenging role out of all of them. I mean, I've had some pretty challenging roles, which is good because that's what I like. I don't try to take on things that are easy. Obviously, I'm launching a beverage company, for crying out loud. But at the end of the day, dealing with, I don't know, what do we have? 60 currencies. My team was responsible for kind of doing, I wouldn't say forecasting is probably accurate, but it was definitely paying attention and, where some of that would go and all the transfer pricing we'd have. And yeah, it was in languages and time zones and products, like I said, you don't see. Did that for a couple of years, moved into a global strategy role at Kraft, where ironically, I just can't leave this IRI and Nielsen thing. In international, I wrote about country share and market research numbers, that I had feed into my team, and then we'd send that off to our leadership, the CEO of the company, et cetera. And then when I go in this global strategy role, now I'm in charge of all the international data coming in for the leadership team. And
so that's amazing to me that you're seeing the, because I always laugh about that. I always laugh about the, the minimal share gains and the 0.1 share losses, the 0.1 share gains. You did all that. You saw the global push and pull of the picture, and you still jump back into the beverage market. So I think
this is part I'm trying to wrap my head around too. I'm thinking, so you've done it. You've seen all the chaos.
Yeah.
You've seen the numbers, so it's a shit show. Like it's a lot of stuff going on, and yet you still consciously choose.
And that's amazing.
To go down these paths.
There's a couple of things though. I mean, I also got to see how, what's the saying? I get to see how the whatever stuff's made, the inside of the guts of these companies, right? How it really operates, and you see a lot of efficiency or inefficiency. I saw the inefficiencies at Pepsi, and we all know the story what happened with Kraft, right? We separated from Mondelez. I was in investor relations at that point for a few years, and and then Heinz comes through, which is really a 3G that about Heinz that then came in and took Kraft out, and all that's about efficiency play, and you see all this inefficiency at these large companies that. There's a lot of required work, right? There's a lot of required stuff that gets on. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that but you look at this and you go, man, we can do this so different. And, and it's not to knock on any of these roles. Like I don't consider myself a market researcher, but I understand market research, right? I did a lot of work with that stuff. I understand, I'm much more of the finance, more strategic kind of role with a lot of things that I've gotten involved in. But these things can be done at levels that don't take an army to do, this. And then if you think about, I didn't come out with a bottle or a can, which I could have done, right? I could have came out in a bottle or a can. I know that space super well, but I also need about $100 million to do that. I mean, if you think about launching a beverage in a can, forget nationally, but even regionally, you need a significant amount of money. Well, how can we do this and be in every single outlet you can imagine and not have to need a cooler or a refrigerator or a whole bay on a distributor's truck, et cetera? Well, we can do this by using our packets, right? We can have these can sit in every spa and salon in the country. Forget about a typical retail outlet that sells beverages and food. This is traffic where people go. Now, obviously we're in a pandemic now and things have changed, but hotels, gyms. I mean, now gyms typically will have coolers, so that's more closer to they modified that over the years, right? Where now I mean, especially the big chains all have this giant pantry area that is kind of high end, but in the past they didn't have a lot of that stuff. But you're thinking, think of like a Home Goods or a REI. REI is picking up more because of the outdoors and the camping and the stuff to go with it. But those are all areas where our product would be really good to go in. Yeah, it's not easy to get in those spaces. It's actually harder than it is sometimes in traditional retail. But at the end of the day, we can go there without having to buy coolers. Now, if I had this in a can or a bottle, you have to have
to buy the coolers.
You got to do the coolers.
And now you're competing against Coke and Pepsi. Good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You're not gonna have floor space.
In every one of those type of channels, it's exclusive. It's either a Pepsi contract or a Coke contract.
100%. You're not going to get it.
Yeah. So how can we build this up and build momentum? And also e-commerce. I mean, again, we talked at the very beginning. I shipped this to you, and it doesn't weigh a lot, right? So this is a natural e-commerce play. Yeah. The catch is, at some point we'll probably be in a bottle or a can. I mean, it's a beverage company, for crying out loud. People consume it that way, right? But let's just kind of build a brand up. Let's try to turn this into a little more lifestyle. Let's try to turn this into, the true function that people have desired, and have that kind of, be part of that, and then go from there. Instead of say, hey, I need a canner, I need a distribution, I need the coolers.
The capital cost too, right?
Exactly.
You're go into that.
Yeah, it's just, that's the cost per vent side of doing it. And those that do it need to be super well funded to go through. And you still launched all the time. I mean, I know companies, I know founders of other companies that have gone in with cans and whatnot, and I've had conversations with them and whatever I can do to help out. But at the end of the day, it's a different animal. And then you think about this trend is US, and obviously you guys are in Canada, but so it's in North America that everybody kind of thinks about equally here. This is a worldwide phenomenon. People are looking for healthier options to boost your immune system around the globe. And what's out there are some crappy powders and an ingredient line that's longer than the length of my packet in many cases. So how can we tap into this space where, Europe is turning into the California from an eco standpoint, eco-friendly. California has this, and Vancouver sees it as well, where everybody has the Swell bottles or the Contigos, et cetera, and eliminating as much PET as possible. Well, Europe's doing that already, so why not tap into that area? And oh, by the way, again, my background with international, they're used to having single serve things. Their instant coffee is a premium coffee compared to most stuff here in the US. And that's an instant. Just think of what their brewed stuff tastes like, right? For those that like coffee. So they're used to having a quality product in a single serve that they can have it their way. So there's opportunity that is very different doing it this way than having it in a can or a bottle that we could do. So it's a lower risk, I guess, financially, if you would, right? Because I don't need to take 100 million and make sure that whatever entity or whatever raise that is, we all hear the horror stories. You gotta be careful who you partner with, right? And the stuff that comes back there. And hey, that's a lot of money. Results need to happen pretty quickly. And and I've seen companies where the companies get taken away from the founders because they can't manage that. Yeah. One of the benefits with the background that I have and my partner Joe as well is we have this large company experience, so we do understand the demands of the board, the demands of the what's necessary from an organization, how to launch launch brands. Because Kraft and Pepsi both launch brands. It's a little different when you have, basically an unlimited bank account behind putting up $200 million behind a launch compared to anything that we're doing. But at the end of the day, you still want to do the right things. It's just, you want to do them, with the right passion and the right, you really can't have too many missteps. And when you do, you need to miss small, right? Because you can't afford to miss large. So it's bringing that perspective is why I'm still excited about launching something like this. And I completely get it. Most people are so naive on the corporate side of this. Is like, once why would you do it? And at the end of the day, it's really about an opportunity that we can drive some change in the beverage space. Really drive the functional component. And if we can start making our mark and building this out the way that we think we can with this, it'll probably force at a faster pace than what normally would happen to some of these larger companies to look at true health products that go in.
It's kind of cool. You guys haven't been around very long, right? Like I think Rebellious has been around around a couple of years.
Technically it's been a couple of years. So
Okay.
the reality is in 2019, we basically didn't do a lot. We had some product, we did some e-commerce, we did some things, and we tested a number of different things in selective retailers, friendly folks.
How long did it take you to kind of settle on this sachet kind of liquid format?
Well, we went to that pretty quick.
Okay.
That was a point of difference that we wanted to have.
Okay.
What we had to tweak a little more than we expected is the taste profile. We thought we had a good one. We had it in front of a few thousand people at different shows where we could get, 5-10 questions of answers. So a little bit of the market researcher, if you would. And, we had a lot of support behind it. And then we had a lot of people that we started to know and network more that, these are more or less people we knew that really started giving us some frank feedback that things didn't taste as good as they expected or what they would have expected to go through. And I'm like, I hear you, but they're like, I can't stand the kombucha stuff that's out there. That's just not my taste profile, right? But it's $1 billion business and more right now. It's growing like crazy.
Right.
So if we only had a taste profile I liked, that's a different story, or what you had and everybody else. So at first I'm like, are you sure this is that's you, not everybody else? Because we get all these thousands of folks that have said that this is great and, et cetera, et cetera. And when COVID came, because this was right before COVID, when COVID came, we were making headway in hotels, in some universities, their food service programs. But of course, the hotel space was the early indicator. They were the canary in the coal mine, right, of COVID coming, because they knew the worldwide traveling, they knew this stuff was spreading, and they were making immediate purchase, decisions on limiting purchases, et cetera. So I had a pretty good idea in early February that this was going to be a pretty big pandemic. Like an idiot, I didn't change my portfolio around too much at that point. I even told my trademark attorney, because he was asking me, I told him I was going to go all cash, and I didn't. And next thing you know,
that's okay. We'll join the group, but that's a nice family of friends.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020. Even though but we were making a tremendous amount of progress in again a space that's literally, you are Pepsi or you are Coke in the hotel franchises. And I know that because I was there and I've done it. But yet we were able to go into these and they loved what we had. And the best way we were able to is talk to the chefs. I wasn't looking to be in the little shops next to the check-in area, where you forget your toothbrush or whatever and you go down and buy it. That's great. Don't get me wrong. We should, there's a reason we could be there for sure, but that's not like a convenience store. I mean, that's not a retail outlet if you think of volume and velocity, right? Yeah. But to be part of the conference centers and the meeting rooms and and even the in-room dining or in-room, refrigerators, et cetera, to do things like that, to provide that healthy option rather than your traditional 2 or 3 SKUs that they carry of whatever it is. And then in the meeting space to be able to do, or even have it, a lot of hotels are still trying to, cater to the consumer far more at a faster rate, and they offer like a happy hour and they do different things, and they have the big water dispensers and they throw their fruit in it, et cetera. Why not use Rebellious in there with all the antioxidants and et cetera, because we could do things with them. So we were actually making really good runway with that. And of course COVID came. We started to get in a couple of university food service programs that were, again, those are hard to get into unless you already have the pool and the traction. So, the school said, hey, you need to contact, I'm not going to tell them who we were using, but who we use. And we get all that set up. And then, we have COVID issues going on. So students are going to go remote. A week later, no students on campus, everybody go home. And it's kind of been like that to a degree, and it's really to a point where we're now about to start picking up on some of those areas that we left out, that we kind of stopped at. And the biggest challenge that we faced is, and many have, if we would have been where we are with our product and with our connections and where we were 2 years ago,
right,
the COVID thing would have been a complete, huge tailwind pushing us through everything. And instead, it's really been more of a headwind that we've had to take on and, really kind of scrap and work through, relationships, because every broker out there has a different relationship now with their buyer.
Yeah.
They can't just stop in right? You have to have and this is probably going to be the new norm, right? Always appointment driven now, always, registering at a desk. There's never it doesn't matter how well
meetings, less lunches, less coffees, less, much more.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want to tell me.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier for them to say no, I don't want to deal with it.
Exactly.
It's like a cold call on the phone, right?
Exactly.
Go through. So this is a new world that I think the retail establishment space is going to face. And I've already heard from a few distributors that they're limiting what they're bringing in 2021 significantly from a new product lines. And so I don't know how that's directly going to impact us yet. It's a little too early, but it does kind of make some sense, right? I mean, if you
depends what you can offer though, right, Doug? If you can offer something different, which you might have, is you got some play, because SKU rationalization in retail and in distribution is going to happen. Because what happened? We all showed that if you had, before COVID, you needed 50 SKUs of toilet paper. You needed it. Like there's no way you could open in the morning without it. Yeah. Post-COVID, all you needed was one.
Yep. Maybe two. Maybe two, because you can go a little high-low on the pricing.
But that's it. But otherwise, you figured out very quickly that you did not need this mass amount of redundancy, right? So for you guys, though, right. So for your perspective, I guess I want to pull it back even a little bit again.
Yeah.
So you came from Kraft. So you had Mio. Mio was Kraft. It was when
Nestle. Yep, it was Kraft. I was there when we launched it.
Nestle was coming out. So it wasn't like the space was a dead space. Like there was guys already fiddle farting around and trying to say, okay, how about if we just add to water?
Yeah. So you're 100% right. There was that window. What was it, around 2010 probably?
2010 to maybe 2013, 11. 14, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So that came out and really created that water enhancer kind of definition that didn't really exist before. There's been sticks, there's been powders for a long time, Crystal Light, Tang, all that kind of stuff that Kraft had and many others have. And there's a lot of supplements that are in that space. Right. Those things have been around, but the powders never mix well. It's always chalky. It always has that little tang to the end of it. And then, you get to a Crystal Light or a Mio, it's 100% artificial.
Yeah, it's all sugar and
Mio, they start with, Pepsi and Coke, 100% artificial. I mean, at the end of the day, they start with water and they just add stuff to it, right, to get to the right taste or what they want. And in Mio's case, there were more lines of ingredients than we have number of ingredients in our packet. Yeah. And so what they did is kind of open up the customization a little bit more, right? I mean, one of Kraft's commercials at the beginning with Mio was add a little or add a lot. Have it the way you want it. And that's exactly what we think about with our packets is, have it to, we target 16 ounces or, your half-liter water bottle, but you can have it in 14 or 12 or whatever you want, or put it in 18 or 20. We have one customer that buys from us every month quite a bit, and he puts 2 in a gallon of water and drinks his gallon all day long. And it just helps him constantly hydrate and drink more and et cetera, which is pretty amazing. So it's, there's always uses for different reasons and different things. And to do this, we don't really want to put it in that Mio bottle right now, possibly down the road, but that category is also falling off. Like powders have been falling off. That's kind of falling off. And both of those are falling off because they don't meet the consumer's needs right now. It's all about meeting the needs, and those aren't healthy. You're not getting a benefit outside of hydration, and some could argue some of that hydration may not be beneficial to your hydration because it could make you more thirsty. It could, and you're putting, artificial stuff in your body.
Well, one of the large ones you guys own that's a massive hydration company is really a pretty shitty product. In your old Pepsi.
Oh yeah, the Pepsi days. Yeah,
that's a lot of sugar. It's really, yes, good God bless them for advertising, but
well, and they've done what they've done what we started a little bit now is because now they have Bolt, not to drop names in, which is caffeinated, which is a green tea base, which is, an antioxidant level. But I will argue if you did an analysis of their product, because I know the business, that they have the bare minimum of all that in to market it and put it on the label, right? Say it, right? So your body's not necessarily getting that benefit. We're testing ours and making sure it's there and doing it. And our product isn't necessarily a sports drink. We have professional athletes that are customers that use it. Because of contractual stuff, we don't have a contract with them. I just know because we know through our dietitian and that some of our dietitians and whatnot that have had. I'm like, great. And I use some of that as test. It's like, hey, what can we do? Can we do X? What are you looking for?
Right.
To drive a little difference. But we're not looking for this to be an end game hydration fix. Like if you're doing a marathon and you need one of those electrolyte sticks or gels, right, that you're going to drink. That's not the goal. But put one of ours or two of our packets in, say, 20 ounces or 25 ounces of water an hour before you have your high level workout. Now you're hydrated. It's out of your stomach. You're not going to cramp up. You get a focused energy, throughout the long haul. You pay attention more if you're, a team athlete or individual athlete you need to focus on, and it gives you a little bit of the alertness for the stamina for the, the marathoner, the triathloner, et cetera. And then after, you hydrate still, and you hydrate during, and you have your electrolytes, and you do all those things. But another hour later, you still need to drink again, and nobody wants to. Great product to put back in because it tastes great. It helps you drink a lot more.
So how are you communicating that though?
Yeah.
So you got a time of COVID, you got limited retail because it's tough right now.
Yeah.
You've got the other big players who've been talking about their products for years and people think they're great because they really don't know.
Right.
So you're in a time where it's tough to get distribution. You can tell a great story, but unless you're going to go on a podcast every minute of the day or walk the streets telling everybody you see the story, like, how do you message all this? How do you
that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, and every marketer will tell you they have a solution for that. And at the end of the day, they all don't. And that burned us at the beginning. We had a team that we had to separate with. And that's one of the hardest things to do because I'm a very loyal person that people help us get off the ground and help us move. And how do you know when to kind of make that change? That's one of those other learnings that I never used to worry about at the Pepsi Kraft world, right? So that's, something here. But at the, that's the challenge. I mean, our product is great for consumers that are in their teens. It might be a 13-year-old kid or a 20-year-old kid, whatever, all the way up to like our grandfathers or whatever that are in their 90s, for crying out loud. We have a product that is across all demographics and all age groups. And then the $1 million question is you can't market,
market to that.
Not even a question, you can't market to that because that doesn't work, right? And so you got to pick the groups that are either the influencer side of things, the bandwagon as you go through, and we do have some influencers we're working with to help tell the story a little bit more, but you really just try to get to the masses of where you think some of that is. So we spend more of our time on the PR and on the digital marketing side, targeting that mid 20 to early 40, demographic, if you would, where just about every single product in the world gets targeted to, right? Just because that's also those looking for healthier and more indulged to do this. Right. We just were on Home Shopping Network a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic success on that. So that's a completely different demographic, right? So that's an avenue to go to someone that's, scaled or geared a little bit older. Now they'll tell, Home Shopping Network is going to tell us it's all, scaling younger and younger, especially with this, but it's still an older demographic compared to, they're not on Amazon or on Snapchat or Instagram, right? So it's definitely older. But again, we catered very well to that. And it's not necessarily that consumer. It might be their kids they're buying it for, right? Or even their grandkids or whatever. But that consumer, we do have a lot that, that we know because we have the digital data that comes through that we can, just like any other company, right? The digital data, if you can use it right, is very golden. It's very important to target and retarget and everything. So we know that there's a fair amount in that age group that come back to our site and order from us. So really, it's a challenge, right? It's a noisy time out there. We, there's a lot of products, a lot of noise, and how do you cut through that? We rely on some experts to help us, and hopefully we're fine tuning as we go. We just started this past week. We're in day 6 of it, I think, of a sampling program that we're using through digital. I think it's pretty innovating. It's so far, it's too early to tell how it's going to play out. I know a few other companies that have done it, and we're charging a small fee for shipping and handling because we want to weed out the free is me, right? I mean, we all can give product away all day long, anywhere we want. It's a matter of getting something for that, right? So we offer three packets. Right now, it's based on our availability of our supply, but eventually it'll be across everything.
Right.
And basically they pay a $3 shipping and handling. We mail it out to them, and in there they get directions for a coupon of $3 off a reorder, you know.
So you kick it back just in a different way.
Exactly. In this particular case, we're sending them to Amazon, but we can send them anywhere we want.
Right.
And so as we do something like that, and this proves to be something there, that cost to acquire that customer now becomes very small. And then the golden piece is the retargeting in there, and the taste profile is pretty good. I mean, we think it's very good, and so we think there'll be a high percentage that at least will enjoy it. So whether they go and they rebuy, the numbers will prove out shortly, you know, on how that plays out. But, you know, I mean, we talk companies all the time, and especially commerce, you know, your podcast, you know, this Commerce Life, you know, talk about the value of a customer and the cost to acquire a customer, and what's the lifetime value and all of these type of things. And those were really difficult questions for me to answer early on, because I'm like, well, my customers are, you know, I'm trying to get in Walgreens, or I'm trying to get in, you know, a smaller, you know, retail channel, right? That go through. I want to be in the military channel, or, you know, these things. I want to be in Dick's, right? Sporting goods. Like how do you define what the value of that customer is? Like, that's not the same. But the customer acquisition really is the e-commerce side. It's the individual acquisition customer. And, you know, this may prove to lower that, to make that very beneficial. And since we get some of that back in our shipping and handling fee, you know, it doesn't cover everything, but it covers a lion's share of it. Right. That now we also have retargeting information. And then, you know,
well, you've got interested people. Phil and I talk about this a lot, especially in this time, is that those are the things you try to do to start a database, to get insight, to start looking. Yeah. Okay, you know what? That's great. So you get a lot of people. Okay, so people are willing to pay for something like this. You know, validates that part. You find out that most of the people you're getting, if you can, you know, do the age estimates without violating a whole shitload of privacy rules, but you start doing that and you start thinking, wow, you know what? We really are 30 to 40-year-old sort of company. Oh my God, I didn't realize we're skewing so much female. Like, you can start to garner that, but because you came from, that's what big companies, it's still weird that as someone who was in those worlds went completely backwards. It's really cool. I love it. I know Phil likes this too, because we came from corporate as well. So yeah, I love shit like that. I love when people I love it. But it's great all the information you've learned over the years. You did, you know, IRI, you understand this. You're looking at things that a lot of the small companies that we end up talking to, they just don't. It's product, so it has to work. And you're thinking, well, no, a product and an idea are great, but doesn't a business make?
Right.
Well, and there are things that, like, you know, especially in the digital space, there are a lot of things that even out the playing field in a lot of ways, right? Like, so, you know, it's funny because I'm having this conversation with one of my clients where we're talking about, you know, something simple like Facebook cost per result, right? When you run ads, and when you're in a big company and you've got an unlimited bucket, maybe it doesn't matter so much to you. But for you, I promise you, right, that if your cost per result is like $15-16, you're going, oh, how long? I'm watching the credit bill go up, right? Like,
you're gonna bleed.
How do we make better images to make cost per result go down, exactly. Right? Like, clicks go up and cost per, like, that's what I need, right? So there's, you know, but those are things that you can actually, you know, like your e-commerce stuff. I think it's going to go great, right? Like, your shipping costs are down. Like, you're going to be able to drive some pretty cool things here. I think on the retail level too, it's going to be interesting because you don't compete on traditional space the same way either.
That's
absolutely.
You've got a whole bunch of categories all these cans yourself up to.
I can fit all these SKUs in here. The consumer, you know, because even at home, you know, like, I've got 3 kids, right? So I've got a 13, a 14, and a 19-year-old. So juice,
you're right, in my
how much
wheelhouse.
Juice can I keep in the house, right? Like, you know, I got liters and liters, you know, I'm Canadian, so liters and liters, gallons and gallons everywhere. You can only hold so much, but I can keep your packets, you know, in the same snack shelf. They just mix their own when they go, right? Like, it's a totally different proposition, right?
You come with a can, guess what aisle you're in? You are only going in that aisle. I don't give a shit what you think your product is. You're going in that aisle. You come in a packet, you could open up the vitamin set. You open up the sports set. You could go down the traditional beverage set. Maybe you can go into a travel set. Like, all of a sudden you start, I mean, I loved your idea of the hotels. You know, not getting into the commissary, the convenience store there, because it's bullshit. You're right. I don't forget toothbrushes. I'm sorry, I just don't. When I traveled, there was times I forgot maybe a Tylenol or something in the middle of the night, whatever. But really, that's not a place I'm shopping. But if you can get it on the menu, if you can have it as an additive, if you're looking at schools, I think your trial concept of weeding out all the freebies, I think is a great way to go. It shows commitment on their side, and you're comping it back anyway. Like you are giving it back, just in a different method. But at least you've got a dedicated $3 is not a lot of money. But fuck, when I can do for free, $3 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the person is willing to spend $3, you probably got them.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's what we're going to try to prove out. And unfortunately, we're having this call today versus having this call, say, 2 months from now, when I have the results to share with your audience and how that is.
So I wouldn't mind
come
having
back and tell us,
because I think our listeners would gain a lot from that, and I think they need to understand that there's some basic ways. Like, what's your cost now? It's about $3. Like to Phil's point, we're 15, 16, $20 on Facebook sometimes, not really out of the world of reality.
Yeah, and if we can get them to come back to our site and and pick up 2 or 3 or 4 over the course of a year, that annual number becomes a real the multiplying effect on that is a big revenue number at the end of the day. And in all of these instances that we look at and where we are, it's just a math exercise, right? It's outlets, it's distribution points. It is like that in the corporate world, don't get me wrong, in the big company, but when you're a small company, you build this out, it's like it builds out pretty fast and pretty, depending on where and what you're trying to get into and what can happen. It's the same thing on the consumer front, on the e-commerce. If we're doing the sampling and we're hitting, 500 samples a month, we're not quite there for this month that we're doing it, but that's, if this works, right? Again, it creeps up, as you were saying, on the, so we got to make sure it kind of works and have a scale enough to see if it works. But if it does, I don't know why we couldn't even do 1,000 a month, for crying out loud. Because if 30% of those come back in, and buy again, that number becomes an awful large number, on just an annual basis, and getting product in people's hands. And when that happens, when it's in their hands, it makes things a lot easier on the brick and mortar side as you go in. Because one of the strategies we have, of course, I came from this world of like, why am I doing this if these guys are all over the places? Because when we launched, I didn't want to be anywhere they are. Like that's the goal. It's like, I'm not trying to compete with them. We're competing from a product and an ingestible and functional health, and yes, I want to take a serving away from somebody. If you think about like share a stomach, if you would, and some of those kind of exercises, right? But I want to be where people are and they think about it, and let's start building this out. And same with like I wish we did our sample thing from the beginning. We just implemented this recently, but we started talking about it late last year. And I'm like, why in the world haven't we done this before? This should have been day one. This should have been the first thing we ever did. Like, here's our product and here's what we're going to do. Forget building a store. We only are building a sample program, and this is what we're doing and driving that. And, in hindsight, I think that would have been a game changer for us. Had we done it just from a speed, and our speed can still be astronomical in a food and bev launch standpoint. Because we didn't build this to say, hey, we have to go to food stores. We have to be in Kroger. We have to be in Walmart. We have to be in these places, because I'm not selling this bag of, snack mix or whatever it is that, people come out with that is a new version or something different. And at the end of the day, that's where those get shopped and bought. And we need to be there if we're going to be a scalable and a larger, mid-market, whatever versions you want to go from, early stage to, there's all these definitions. But if we want to be a beverage company, we got to go to grocery. There's no question about it. And I'm not sure long-term in grocery, a packet like this makes a lot of sense, unless we continue to innovate and we continue to market and we continue to bring people in there. And like I said, there's probably no doubt we'll go to a bottle or a can. We're eco-friendly, so most likely it'll be an aluminum, rather than PET, given everything going on. But why do it right now? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I can't get, when people suggest that to me, I can't give me enough reason to get me to move that needle. And because I challenge them on it, because I've been in that space, I know it so well. It's like, okay, so So how am I going to get it from the plant? Like, how do we? The
People don't
distribution
understand all the
so
other part of
different.
it, though, right? People just
Yeah.
don't understand all the wheels of motion. And I kind of like what you went what toward the beginning you were saying. I mean, I even like how you launch, and this is what we try to tell even a lot of the small startups. You don't need to phone like a Loblaws in Canada, which is like a Kroger equivalent. You don't need to go to them right away. Pick a couple friendly retailers. There's lots of friendly retailers. There's a lot of unfriendly, but there's a lot of friendly. Start in a region. See what happens. Get a feel. Listen to your customer. You guys did the shows. I know nobody wants to be told that the product's not as good as they think it is. I get that, but it's not yours.
It's
Listen
funny
to the
because
consumer.
It's funny because when you think about us doing shows where I told you we sampled and tried it, those aren't food shows. We didn't go to any of the KE food shows or the.
Not theirs, like a consumer show, right?
Yeah, we went to a couple spa and salon shows. We went to some other ones.
But you did outside industry. That's even more interesting. Wow.
Well, yeah, because we're the only thing like this, right? Because they're in the case of spa and salons, they're getting oils and whatever and everything else. But these are spa owners and salon owners that have consumers spending hundreds of dollars there, for hours at a time. And why not give them something that's loaded with antioxidants that, they're paying for them to put on their skin? So there's elements that kind of fit into it, that resonated with it. And it gave us kind of that usage as a consumer rather than more of the trade that you're going to get. And we all know how things can get kind of mixed a little bit with the trade side. But yeah, it's exciting that we've been able to come this far with it and do some things. And, and like I said, it's not just a domestic play. I mean, we have an international play with this that is very easy to do with Made in America stamp, that we can be international, that if we're in a can, who's going to pay that freight, right? We got container ships sitting all over the Pacific Ocean right now that the price of the stuff is going through the roof.
Yeah.
A can of our
containers have gone through the roof.
Yeah. A can of our product compared to a can of, anything in a can and literally in a can, the ship is, it's insanely different in from a function standpoint or from a price standpoint to get through. So I
don't know if you've priced cans lately. You see what the price of cans are.
I heard they've gone up.
They're all in North America. There's nothing in Asia because nothing's going back. So
they're all sitting outside California.
New York, Vancouver. Like there's cans.
But they're sitting outside of Vancouver as well.
Well,
a can now to ship across the states. I had a buddy tell me the other day, a can that would normally like a 40-foot that normally like 5 years ago would have been probably $2,500 US, $10,000 now to get across to your country. Wow. Cans from Asia where we were paying $2,000, 2,500, 3,000 Canadian for 40-foot 5 years ago, 10 grand. Just with a can.
So they're actually selling them now. So the mini, the mini house, the miniature house, micro house movement.
I saw that.
They're all sitting here anyway.
It's mine, right? Because there's too many containers. So for like $5,000, you can buy yourself a container and build yourself a house.
Crazy, man.
So they're
or your doomsday shelter or whatever else.
Whatever you want, right? So probably for you, a good idea to have the product you had, right? Because again, you're right. I mean, if you really want to go international, 40-foot, like you could ship tens of thousands of packages. You can't do that if it's a can.
No, not at all.
The traditional beverage,
traditional beverage would never work, and you got to build a brand, and then you got to find manufacturing local.
You got to do it there.
Yeah, but then they want made in the U.S. and some of these regions. So I mean, it just becomes. That's why companies sit there and go, it's North America focus, right? At that point, because you can't. They can't fathom how it would happen. Most probably don't have the experience because, frankly, it is tough to get international experience in CPG these days. You don't work internationally a lot of times. There's far less expats, in the large corporations and whatnot. So having that perspective is, again, just another thing that we bring to the table as we look at opportunities. So we don't need to take this to 100,000 distribution points. We don't need, there's a lot of things that we can do to grow this and have a major impact, both for us and on society. The one thing we didn't get to, one of the reasons we founded this company was there's 3 pillars. One is, super clean ingredient lines that we wanted to have, no artificial of any kind. And 2, we wanted to give back. So we work with two great organizations that we give a percentage of our proceeds back to. One's Folds of Honor, which is basically gives scholarships for families of fallen veterans or fallen soldiers.
Yeah.
Wow. Spouses and kids, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then 2 is we're in Chicago, so Illinois Transplant Fund, similar concept. They support
Right on.
the financial needs for those that can't afford having life-saving transplants, but it's not just a transplant, it's the next 12 months worth of recovery that takes place that most people forget about on these
Right.
big things. So we want to make sure that, we're giving back to society in ways, and it's important for us to give back to quality organizations that have a high percentage of those. These are well over 95 cents to every dollar gain, raise goes back to the cause.
Right.
And that's important because, frankly, if you're collecting a significant salary or a significant portion on these nonprofits, go back to your corporate world job.
Yeah, it's really not fair. You've defeated the purpose of it, right? I mean,
yeah. So we want to make sure we give back. And so, as we've talked about at different times, I mean, the bigger we scale, the more meaningful we'll be able
Right.
to impact these organizations down the road and people and scale that out. So those are, two of our pillars that are very important to us that we go through and do. So it's
good for you,
exciting.
man. Pretty cool. Pretty
Doug,
cool.
Thank you
Pretty
for
cool.
thank you. We're almost out of time. Thank you for joining us. We'll put all your contact links in the show notes as we normally do. Do you
Okay.
want to just tell the brand is Rebellious?
Yeah.
Is it Rebellious Drink?
It's Drink Rebellious.
Drink
Drink
Rebellious.
Rebellious.
Yeah,
Sorry.
drinkrebellious.com. And
Okay.
you can find us there and across the different social handles. We have them
Okay.
all at Drink Rebellious.
Okay.
Same with on Amazon. So
If they want to find you, how do they find you?
yeah, they can
If you want
find
to talk to anybody.
Sure, I'd be more happy to provide any help, counsel, etc. I should have answers. It may not be the right answers, but
You'll have an answer.
no, I'd be
Answer.
whatever I can do to help. I rely on a lot of people that have been very helpful with me.
Good for you.
And I'd love to pay that forward. And you can reach me at doug@rebelliousbeveragecompanny.com.
Okay.
We've kind of separated the consumer kind of front
Right.
end from the corporate side, and or through the website. We have a contact form. You can reach out
Okay.
and say, hey, Doug,
LinkedIn, I'm assuming.
touch base with,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
was
Doug,
awesome,
thanks
buddy.
for joining us. This was fantastic. We
Yeah, good for you.
honestly, in a couple of months, ping us back, and we'd love to have you back on, kind of hear how things are going.
Yeah.
Tell us what's going on for sure.
Absolutely. And if I can be of any help, please let me know. So,
That's awesome, buddy. I really
Thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much.
all right,
Thanks
guys,
for your
take
time.
care.
Take care,
Okay.
man. Ciao,
Take
ciao.
care.
Phil, hang on then, eh?
Yeah. That's cool.
It's different. It's
Yeah.
such a when you come from Pepsi and Kraft, and then seriously, I mean, of all categories, you go in the beverage category, that's ballsy. I mean, that's a bitch of a category.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't get trapped into all the bullshit that the big companies spew. He actually really thought it through, and I think they've got a neat approach to it. I think they got a good chance.
Yeah.
I think they really do. I think they got a really good chance. The format's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's light.
Yeah.
The sampling idea is decent. I mean, there's a lot of people that won't pay, but interesting.
I think it's so I think it's neat because I've seen a couple of companies do sachets, and then the idea that it's logistically light, I think, is really attractive.
Huge.
Right?
Just for shipping,
know.
think of the trial. Even as a commitment on the consumer side, I mean, it is not. It's so easy to ship. It's so easy to move. It's a great Amazon product. There's this. It's just a really smart idea. And see, this is where I think a lot of listeners have to when you're designing your products. Maybe we should even talk about it more as we go. Put logistics a lot farther.
Yeah.
Into the thought process,
Yeah.
up front on the thought process. You got to think of that. It's you got to think of how you're going to move this stuff. What formats? I mean, that's
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, yeah. I mean, it was interesting.
I also think that, this. I mean, it is one of those behaviors that I think might change, right? He was in a ready to drink category, but we're in pandemic times where nobody really needs it ready to drink, right? You're not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. What's the difference?
Two is, quite honestly, people have been stocking up. They're trying to make sure that they don't have to go out when they don't have to go out.
Right.
But yet, we live in a first world country. We have first world problems like variety and taste of flavors, and so now you've got solutions that actually cater to those, right? So I think the only trick is he's right. From a marketing standpoint, that's just hard to communicate. It's hard to make that change in behavior.
Well, that's sort of why I was asking that, because I'm thinking, that's great that we had an hour to talk to you, and you can do your spiel and you can talk about it, but you don't have the trade right now. You don't have so the distribution is tight. So
The
that's,
consumer behavior.
how do you get that messaging out?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do it? But again, I mean, I think they're smart enough to know that the retail outlet of Amazon is very consumer friendly. I think pre-COVID, when they were testing that, I think that's like even the shows they chose, as opposed to doing a traditional trade show in grocery, which all you're talking to the grocery buyers, they did a spa. Interesting. Who doesn't drink water at a spa? Like, there's nobody. I mean, if you're having a massage, if you're doing a treatment, everybody drinks water. I mean, why not? I mean, it's got a lot of cool angles in there. So
Yeah.
well thought out.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, well
That
thought
was
out.
pretty cool. Yeah.